She whispered his name while rocking our daughter, cradling our newborn. She whispered my brother's name. I stood frozen in the hallway listening. My stomach turned. That couch she used? The same one where I proposed. That soft lullaby voice? Not meant for me. While I spent sleepless nights in the NICU, she was deleting texts and funneling money to him behind my back, my wife, and my brother. But what she didn't know? I was already documenting everything. Every call, every lie. And she never expected I'd weaponize the truth in a way only she and Nate would pay for. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Daniel Mercer, and I'm 49 years old. After 17 years of marriage to my wife Laura, I spend most nights in a plastic hospital chair, watching our premature daughter's tiny chest rise and fall in the NICU. My younger brother Nate, always the family charmer, checks on Laura at home while I maintain my vigil here. Something feels off. Laura's voice carries a new distance when she calls, and her hospital visits grow shorter each time. I've learned in operations management that patterns tell stories, so I keep notes in my phone, dates, times, small inconsistencies that most would miss. The nurses praise my detailed tracking of our daughter's progress, but they don't see what else I document. Some betrayals arrive wearing your last name. But let me start from the beginning. 2 weeks after bringing our daughter home, the cracks started showing. Maybe they'd been there all along, hidden beneath the strain of fertility treatments and premature delivery anxiety. But now, they were spreading like ice across a winter pond. Laura's changes came in waves. First, it was the midnight feedings. I'd hear our daughter's cries and pad down the hallway, only to find Laura already there, shoulders tight as piano wire. "I've got this," she'd snap, not even turning around. "Just go back to bed." Remember those first days of marriage, when even brushing past each other in the kitchen felt electric? Now my hand on her shoulder might as well have been a stranger's. She'd shrug it off, muttering something about being touched out from the baby. Fair enough, except she wasn't the one doing most of the contact care. The walks were next, long ones, always unplanned. "I need air," she'd announce, grabbing her keys before I could offer to join her. Sometimes she'd be gone an hour, sometimes 3. Each time she returned with that distant look in her eyes, like she'd left part of herself somewhere else. You know that feeling when you're driving and suddenly realize you've missed your exit? That slow dawning awareness that something important slipped past while you weren't paying attention? That's how it felt watching my wife drift further away each day. I tried everything the parenting book suggested. More help with night feeds, scheduled date nights, which she usually canceled. Even hired a morning sitter so she could sleep in. Nothing stuck. The harder I reached, the faster she pulled back. Finally, one Tuesday morning, I brought up couples therapy over breakfast. Just casual-like, mentioned how my colleagues swore by it after their kid was born. "Could be good for us," I said, buttering my toast. "Help us adjust to all these changes." Laura's coffee mug hit the counter hard enough to slosh liquid over the rim. "Don't control me," she hissed. Her eyes weren't tired anymore. They were ice, cold, defensive. Like I'd accused her of something much worse than suggesting counseling. That night, while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone to text her sister about the baby's feeding schedule. We'd been trading updates all week, trying to establish a routine. But when I opened the messages, a different name caught my eye. Nate. My brother's chat thread sat right at the top, despite showing no recent messages. Hundreds of texts, all deleted. Just empty gray bubbles stretching back weeks. My thumb hovered over the screen, heart suddenly too loud in my ears. Then I saw it, one image that hadn't been erased. The photo was slightly blurred, taken in a mirror. Nate, shirtless, that cocky half-smile he'd worn since college. But it wasn't his expression that stopped my breath. It was the background. Our living room, our couch, the same damn couch where I'd gone down on one knee 17 years ago, ring box shaking in my hands while Laura cried happy tears. My fingers moved on autopilot. Screenshot. Email to myself. Delete, sent email. Return phone exactly as I'd found it. all while my mind spun like a broken compass, unable to find true north. The shower was still running. Down the hall, our daughter made those little sleep snuffles that usually melted my heart. But right then, all I could hear was static. White noise drowning out 17 years of trust. I walked to the nursery, legs somehow still working. Leaned over the crib and watched our daughter's peaceful face. 7 weeks premature, but fighting stronger every day. Unlike her father, who'd just taken the hardest hit of his life and hadn't even seen it coming. The shower shut off. Laura would emerge soon, wrapped in steam and secrets. I stayed where I was, one hand gentle on our daughter's back, feeling her tiny heartbeat. Steady, certain. Everything my world had just stopped being. I woke up the next morning with my face feeling like concrete. Hadn't slept more than 20 minutes at a stretch, but that didn't matter. I had a role to play. Morning on, I kissed Laura's cheek as she bottle-fed our daughter, just like any other day. Just like my world hadn't cracked open yesterday. She barely nodded, focused on the baby, or pretending to be. These days, I couldn't tell the difference anymore. I loaded the dishwasher, humming that old lullaby my mother used to sing, the one about moonbeams and sweet dreams. Funny how muscle memory works. My hands moved through the motions while my mind kept circling back to that photo. Nate, shirtless, in our house. You ever try to act normal when your brain's screaming? It's like walking a tightrope while someone's sawing through the rope behind you. One wrong step, one crack in the mask, and everything falls apart. Once Laura headed upstairs for a shower, I pulled out my laptop, created a new email account, something generic, untraceable. Then I did what I do best, started documenting. See, in logistics, you learn quick that patterns tell stories. People lie, but data doesn't. I pulled up our phone records first. Laura's number jumped out like a red flag. Dozens of calls to Nate during my NICU stays. Always when I was tied up with doctors or sleeping in those plastic chairs. The gaps were what got me, though. Those mysterious hours when her phone went dark, like someone who knows they're being watched. Around noon, I called Nate. Had to test the waters. "Hey, big brother." His voice was cherry, pie sweet. Too sweet. "How's my favorite niece?" Growing like a weed, I kept my tone light, casual. "Listen, Laura. Mentioned you might have some old baby gear in your storage unit. Mind if I swing by this weekend to take a look?" "Oh, a pause. Just a heartbeat too long. Storage unit's kind of a mess right now. Let me sort through it first." I could practically hear him sweating through the phone. Good old Nate. Never could lie worth a damn. Not to me, anyway. Guess that changed somewhere along the line. "No rush," I said, "whenever you get around to it." After we hung up, I sat there for a long while, just breathing, trying to push down the acid taste in my throat. That conversation confirmed what I already knew. My little brother, the kid I'd taught to ride a bike, was lying straight to my face. Later that evening, Laura dozed off on the couch, probably texting right until her eyes closed. I waited until her breathing evened out, then slipped into my home office. Bottom drawer, under some old tax returns, was a burner phone from my contracting days. Basic model, but it would do what I needed. Remember what I said about documenting everything? Well, now it was time to level up. I downloaded a call recorder app, tested it twice to make sure it worked clean. Each step felt like another nail in a coffin I never wanted to build. The phone felt heavy in my hands. Heavy with purpose. Heavy with the weight of what I was about to uncover. My stomach twisted into knots tight enough to make me wish I hadn't eaten lunch. You know what the worst part was? Some small, desperate part of me still hoped I was wrong. That there was some innocent explanation for all of this. That my brother hadn't betrayed me. That my wife hadn't turned our home into a stage for her lies. But hope's a funny thing when you're staring truth in the face. It doesn't stand a chance against evidence, against patterns, against that sick certainty in your gut that tells you everything you thought you knew is about to change. I slipped the burner phone into my pocket and went to check on our daughter. She was sleeping peaceful as an angel, tiny fingers curled around her blanket. Completely unaware that her daddy was about to become something he never wanted to be, a spy in his own home. Over the next few nights, I settled into a new routine that felt like a slow descent into a rabbit hole I never intended to enter. The soft hum of my daughter's lullabies became a backdrop to my newfound obsession, tracking every detail of Laura's betrayal. I had turned our living room into my command center, the glow of my laptop screen illuminating the dark corners of my growing suspicion. First, I dove into GPS logs from Laura's car. She'd always been meticulous about keeping it clean, but as I sifted through the data, I found locations that made my gut twist. Late-night stops at a coffee shop not far from Nate's apartment, long drives that didn't seem to have a destination. Every entry felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. I hunched over the keyboard, typing furiously, heart racing with every click. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. This wasn't just emotional cheating, this was something far worse. Late-night runs to pick up groceries coincided perfectly with Nate's rent payments on Venmo. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. As if that wasn't enough to set my blood boiling, there it was, a text thread between Laura and Nate I had managed to recover. My hands trembled as I read it aloud to myself, feeling sick with each word. "Couldn't have made it without you, babe." My mind screamed as I stared at those words on the screen. Babe? How many times had she called me that in years? I quickly took screenshots of everything. The bank transfers labeled innocently as groceries. The heartfelt messages exchanged like love notes under the radar. The sheer audacity infuriated me. She'd been funneling money to him while acting like everything was normal at home. A tightness gripped my chest as reality set in. This wasn't just an affair, it was financial betrayal on top of everything else. Once I'd compiled what felt like irrefutable evidence, a thought struck me hard. I needed help. Legal help. My fingers flew across the keyboard again as I pulled up Amy's contact information. We'd been friends in college. She had a sharp mind and an even sharper tongue when it came to legal matters. It was late when she answered, her voice bright, but laced with fatigue. "Dan, it's been ages. What's up?" "Hey, Amy," I started, feeling oddly exposed even though we were friends for years. "I need some advice. It's kind of serious." "Sure thing. Lay it on me," she said, her tone shifting slightly as she sensed the gravity behind my words. I hesitated for just a moment before launching into a brief overview without giving away too much detail. Just enough for her to understand that things weren't right in my world, and they involved Laura and Nate. "I think Laura's cheating on me," I finally blurted out, each word hitting harder than expected. There was silence on her end for what felt like forever before she responded. "Oh, Dan, I'm really sorry to hear that." Her voice softened considerably. "I don't have proof yet, but it looks bad," I admitted grimly. "Okay," she said carefully. "We can start prepping some legal protections right away, but you need to document everything." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah, I've already started doing that." "Good," she paused before continuing cautiously. "But listen, you need to wait until we can trigger simultaneous filings when you're ready." My heart sank at her words. Waiting felt impossible now that I'd seen all this evidence pile up against them both. "I get it," I said evenly, trying not to let panic seep into my voice. "But what do you think they're going to do?" She exhaled softly through the phone line. A long sigh laced with empathy, but also steely resolve. "You know how these things go. It often gets messy before it gets better. I just want what's best for our daughter." Her response came quick and sure. "That's your priority now more than ever." In that moment, something shifted inside me. A blend of despair and determination surged forward like a tide pushing against an old dam, finally cracking under pressure. The conversation shifted gears. We discussed strategies and potential outcomes. What steps would be needed if things escalated further, or if they attempted any countermeasures against me once this all blew up in their faces. With every passing minute spent speaking with Amy about our legal game plan, the meticulous strategies, my pulse steadied, while clarity washed over me like warm sunlight breaking through clouds after rainstorms of doubt. After we hung up, a heaviness settled around me. Knowing everything Laura had hidden sent waves crashing through my mind while staring at the endless documentation spread out across our living room table. an archive of pain hidden behind mundane conversations and half-hearted excuses. And yet, there was also hope stirring within those documents, a quiet promise that once everything unfolded properly, truth would reign again, like dawn chasing away, shadows lurking at dusk. Still gripping my phone tightly in one hand while scrolling through the evidence on my laptop screen with another, it suddenly struck me how deeply tangled Laura's web had become, and how easy it'd be for both her and Nate to fall victim themselves when exposed under scrutiny come daylight. As cold realization settled over me once more, I realized there would be no turning back now, not when so much was already at stake, and neither could they hide anymore either. But what would happen next? Would their world crumble beneath them when they least expected it? Would Laura regret her choices before losing everything? And would Nate face repercussions he never saw coming? Only time would tell how this twisted tale would unravel. I'd never thought I'd be the kind of guy to set up a nanny cam, but desperate times call for desperate measures, right? So, with the justification of wanting to ensure our daughter's safety, I slid into the tech aisle at Target, keeping my head down as if I were doing something wrong. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, purchasing a surveillance device under the guise of parenting. I settled on a discreet model that looked just like a smoke detector. It had all the bells and whistles, night vision, motion detection, and an app that would let me check in from my phone. After tossing it into my cart alongside diapers and baby wipes, I felt like a spy preparing for some high-stakes operation. The thrill mixed with dread was intoxicating. Once Laura left for Target that afternoon, I sprang into action. My heart raced as I unboxed the camera and readied it for installation. The sound of my daughter cooing in her crib provided a steady backdrop as I secured it in our bedroom's corner, just out of sight but perfectly positioned to capture whatever went on within those four walls. After tucking everything away and pretending like nothing had changed when Laura returned home, I went through the motions of dinner prep while thoughts spun through my head like a carousel gone haywire. What if this didn't work? What if she sensed something was off? But there was no turning back now. Curiosity gnawed at me. The next few days felt like an eternity. Every time Laura stepped out or took our daughter for a walk, my stomach twisted tighter with anticipation. I couldn't focus on work. Each moment felt fraught with possibility, each minute ticking by with potential revelations lurking just beneath the surface. Finally, late one evening after putting our baby down to sleep, her tiny form nestled snugly under her blankets, I decided to check the footage. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and opened the app. A tiny part of me hoped for nothing suspicious. Another part knew better. As soon as I tapped on the recorded video from 2 nights ago, dread settled over me like a thick fog. It opened with an innocuous scene. Laura sitting in our bedroom chair, cradling our daughter against her chest while she softly rocked back and forth. For just a moment, everything seemed normal, the way any loving mother would hold her child. But then, it happened. The moment that sent ice through my veins. Laura leaned closer to our baby's face and whispered something so tenderly that it made my breath catch in my throat. "Nate," she murmured softly. Time froze as that single name hung in the air like an uninvited ghost. It was no accident. There was no misunderstanding here. It was a declaration wrapped in sweetness that should have been reserved solely for me. My mind reeled at what this meant. Her voice light with affection while cradling our daughter who lay completely unaware of what surrounded her. I felt sick to my stomach as disbelief hardened into something far colder than I'd ever imagined possible, an icy fury radiating from deep within me. The camera shook slightly in my hand as I replayed those moments over again. Laura's gentle rocking mingled with her intimate whispering of Nate's name, all happening while their shared secret lay nestled between them. Our little girl unaware of this betrayal simmering around her. How could she? How could anyone be so callous? Tears threatened to spill over as every replay crushed me further. How long had this been going on? Had she whispered his name before? My mind spiraled through countless memories. The birthdays we celebrated together. Quiet evenings spent sipping wine on our porch. And now all those moments felt tainted by this new reality. I quickly shut off the video and tossed my phone onto the bed as if it burned me. My heart hammered wildly against my ribs. Guilt washed over me because I should have known better than to doubt Laura's love for us both. Or so I'd thought. That night was unlike any other. Every flicker of hope I'd clung to shattered around me like glass breaking underfoot. A jagged mess beneath layers of denial I'd wrapped myself in for years. For so long I'd tried to dismiss what didn't make sense. Now it all flooded back in stark clarity. All those moments where she'd been distant or absent when we needed each other most. I locked myself in the bathroom later that night, a small sanctuary where none could hear me fall apart. It had been decades since I'd cried over anything real. Childhood troubles buried deep beneath layers of adulthood. But there I sat against the cool tiles, while tears streamed unchecked down my face. Each sob racked through me harshly. Anger surged alongside grief until they intertwined within. A bitter cocktail that left nothing untouched, but despair lingering around every corner inside this broken heart of mine. The water from the faucet dripped steadily behind me as silence enveloped everything else, until all at once it became too much. All these years flashed before me, the love we shared twisting now into lies threaded throughout daily life. And somehow, life continued outside those walls while mine stood still within them, paralyzed by betrayal that stole away trust without warning. Hadn't we fought enough? Hadn't we endured enough pain trying to become parents? And yet, here she was, my wife whom I'd trusted beyond anyone else. Instead embracing another man behind closed doors with careless whispers, where laughter used to fill empty spaces instead. With raw emotion clawing its way up from deep within until breath escaped only in broken gasps. What more could come from this dark abyss? Was there any way forward now without tearing apart everything we built together? Or would love simply not be enough anymore? The next morning I packed a few essentials into a duffel bag. Just some clothes, my laptop, and a couple of books, things I could grab quickly while my mind was still swirling with confusion. The baby had just fallen into a peaceful sleep cycle, and it seemed like the perfect excuse to move into the guest room. When I told Laura, she simply nodded, barely looking up from her phone. No argument, no protest. It felt like a moment suspended in time, an eerie calm that wrapped around us both as I closed the door behind me, leaving our shared life in the rearview mirror. As I settled onto the narrow bed, surrounded by bland walls and no warmth of familiarity, a wave of desolation washed over me. The room was sterile and impersonal, like a hospital room without the hope of healing. I thought back to those early days of marriage when we dreamt about our future family while huddled under blankets on chilly nights. Now, those dreams felt like distant echoes, fading fast. I slumped against the wall and closed my eyes. Was it me? Had I become too old, too soft, too late to start over? Every self-doubt crept in like an unwanted guest. Maybe all those years spent chasing stability had made me weak, incapable of standing up for myself when it truly mattered. I tried to push those thoughts away, but they clung tight like damp clothes against my skin. As if sensing my turmoil, my heart began to race with each passing second. How could she do this to us? To our daughter? The betrayal wrapped around me tighter than any embrace ever could. It suffocated every ounce of hope I'd harbored for years. Finally, unable to hold it in any longer, I stumbled into the bathroom and turned on the shower, cold water spilling out from above as I let it crash down upon me like a sudden storm. The icy droplets shocked my system awake. Shivering from more than just temperature, I found myself gasping for air as silent sobs escaped my throat. Every breath became an uphill battle as memories assaulted me. Laughter at family gatherings where Nate playfully tossed me beer cans during backyard barbecues. Times when Laura would lean against my shoulder while watching movies late into the night. Where had that light gone? How could two people I once trusted so completely become unrecognizable? Underneath that cold water, I let myself cry, really cry, for what felt like hours, but was probably just minutes in reality. My hands trembled as they gripped the sink's edge, while despair rolled through me like waves crashing against rocks on an empty shore. The world outside continued spinning relentlessly. Everyone moved along their lives while mine crumbled beneath heavy weight. How could this happen now, when we were finally parents? All those years waiting and hoping for a child only to find myself facing this raw wound instead. Hadn't we endured enough heartache already? I let each sob release whatever pent-up grief remained inside until exhaustion took over. I felt utterly alone in that small space, abandoned not only by Laura but also by Nate. The brother I'd once protected with unwavering loyalty now turned back against me. After what felt like eternity spent under that torrent of cold water mixed with tears and sorrowful thoughts, something within shifted just slightly. A whisper of defiance emerged alongside an unexpected glimmer of resilience, flickering deep within me. Just then, thankfully, the harsh buzz of my phone interrupted the storm brewing inside my mind. Shaking off remnants of despair clinging to my skin, I wiped my face with a towel before checking who'd reached out amidst everything else. It was Eric, a text followed by his name lighting up the screen. "Hey Dan, sorry for being Mia. Got your message. You still good for that call?" A flicker of something stirred within. A mix between hope and hesitation. As if someone had flipped on a light switch after darkness enveloped every corner for far too long. Eric had always been there through thick and thin. The kind of friend who understood numbers better than anyone else, but never hesitated to listen when life got messy beyond calculations or spreadsheets. Maybe he was just what I needed right now. Someone outside this twisted world I'd been trapped in since discovering Laura's betrayal. Quickly typing back, a response took less than a minute. "Yeah, just dealing with some stuff at home. Could use your insight." I hit send before worrying he might sense any underlying desperation beneath those words. I didn't want pity, just someone who might help navigate this chaos logically instead. Moments later came his reply. "Let's chat soon. How about tonight?" There it was again. The faint glimmer illuminating paths, yet unexplored. But would talking really help clear out this fog, clouding every thought? I stared at the ceiling above me, where dust gathered silently as time passed. All that emotional heaviness pressing down, threatening to crush everything below, including any potential connections still waiting patiently on distant horizons. As difficult as it felt imagining diving back into conversations about numbers or tax law while grappling with heartbreak surrounding personal life, perhaps Eric's perspective might pull me from drowning deeper within these murky waters. Taking a deep breath, filled with renewed determination. It would be worth exploring even if uncertainty lingered right behind every corner ahead. But first things first. I needed to gather strength enough not only for tonight's conversation but also beyond, where endless possibilities awaited across darkened skies ready for new beginnings yet untold. The lunch rush buzzed around us in that old diner. A place where the smell of grease and coffee mixed with the chatter of local folks catching up over plates of eggs and toast. Eric and I settled into a booth near the back, where faded vinyl seats hugged our sides, making it feel like a small sanctuary amidst the chaos outside. I watched him as he slid into the seat across from me. Stocky, with his clean-cut hair still combed neatly, even after all these years. He wore that familiar wry smile, the one that made you feel like everything would somehow work out in the end. But today was different. I had something heavy weighing down my chest, and it wasn't just last night's cold shower. As I stirred my coffee absent-mindedly, I took a deep breath and launched into it. "So, Eric, you remember how I said things weren't great at home?" I leaned forward, keeping my voice low despite the clattering dishes around us. He nodded but didn't interrupt, just focused on me like a good friend should. So I pressed on. "Laura, she's been distant for a while now. But then there's Nate." My throat tightened at his name. "I found something on her phone." Eric raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What kind of something?" "Photos," I said carefully, "of Nate, at our house." His expression shifted from curiosity to seriousness. "You sure?" I slid my phone across the table with shaky hands. His screen lit up with that blurry image of Nate shirtless in our living room mirror. Eric studied it closely for a moment before looking back at me, his jaw set tight. "Okay," he said slowly, letting out a breath as if absorbing the weight of what this meant for both of us. "What else?" I pulled out screenshots. Evidence gathered over weeks. Laura's Venmo payments to Nate, disguised as grocery expenses. Timestamps matching late-night texts between them. Even GPS logs of her car during those NICU days when she claimed to be running errands. Eric's eyes widened slightly as he flicked through each file I'd saved meticulously in my email drafts, a digital tapestry woven from betrayal threads that linked them together. "Jesus, Dan," he muttered after scrolling through another payment showing Laura's co-signature on Nate's lease without my knowledge. "This isn't just cheating. This is financial manipulation." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut all over again as those words echoed through my mind. Financial manipulation. Like they were working together to con me right under my nose while playing house with our daughter. "I know," I whispered harshly, staring into my half-empty cup of coffee as if it held some sort of answer. "And there's more. She used money meant for baby supplies to fund him." The anger bubbled just beneath the surface as Eric flipped through more documents. He could see it. The pain etched across my face mirrored in his own concern and frustration. After what felt like hours filled with tension and unsaid thoughts hanging thick in the air between us, Eric leaned forward slightly. "Listen, I can take Nate down." I blinked at him incredulously. "Legally?" He nodded firmly. His voice dropped lower like we were hatching some secret plan only meant for trusted allies. "Yeah, undeclared crypto transactions can trigger IRS audits, especially when they involve large amounts flowing into personal accounts without proper documentation." My heart raced as I processed what he was saying. The very idea sent chills racing up my spine, but also sparked an ember of hope deep within me, too. "Wait," I stammered out finally as clarity washed over me like sunlight breaking through storm clouds above us. Maybe there was a way to hit back without losing myself completely in revenge or despair. "I've got screenshots of Nate's wallet activity here," I added quickly while pulling up more files. My fingers fumbling nervously over keys and screens before finding what needed highlighting so Eric could see just how deep this rabbit hole went. He began jotting down notes on a napkin stained from years gone by, noting transaction dates and amounts, but every tick mark made felt like another nail hammered firmly into place against those who'd betrayed me. With renewed urgency filling every space between us, I leaned closer still. "You think you can prep an audit?" "I'll start drafting a report right away," he replied without hesitation, the look on his face steadying everything inside me once again. The knot in my stomach started loosening ever so slightly. It was strange how such simple words brought forth this newfound strength surging forward into life once more. An action plan, forming right before my eyes amid dark shadows, cast by betrayal itself looming ominously overhead. "And Amy? Can we loop her in?" "Of course." Eric glanced up from his napkin scribbles, finally meeting my gaze directly with intent clear behind those glasses perched upon his nose that always reminded me how well organized he was compared to most people out there, including myself sometimes too. "I mean, you've got plenty already documented," he continued after giving me another reassuring nod before leaning back again casually against the booth wall like nothing else mattered but business now ahead. Taking one last sip from my cup filled not only caffeine but fuel igniting within towards taking action further along. I could see possibilities blooming beneath all despair lingering just moments ago. With Eric prepped and ready to assist unraveling Nate's schemes while putting everything together legally, the trap was nearly ready to spring around them both, soon enough. Just needed patience, while ensuring timing remained perfectly executed without errors slipping past any details overlooked accidentally. As lunch wrapped up, the diner started emptying out around us slowly. A sense washed over me. The kind that reminded how fragile life truly is when weighed against betrayal, yet also gifted renewed purpose, rising forth amid darkness, once hidden away. The day finally arrived. Our wedding anniversary. Ironic, isn't it? A date once filled with joy, now poised to mark a sharp turn in my life. I sat on the edge of the bed, the soft morning light filtering through the curtains, painting shadows across our room. It felt surreal, planning something so monumental on a day that had once meant love and commitment. But now, it was time for clarity. I picked up my phone and texted Amy. "Let's do it today." A minute later, she replied with a single word, "Done." Just like that, my heart raced as I thought about what was about to unfold. This wasn't just paperwork. This was the beginning of taking back control. In the days leading up to this moment, Eric had been hard at work too. We'd met in that diner several times since my revelation, going over every detail he could find in Nate's finances. He'd promised me a solid report that would shine a light on everything Nate had been trying to hide, not just from me, but from the IRS as well. As dawn broke over the horizon that morning, I felt both anxious and oddly relieved. This was it. No turning back now. Around noon, I received a call from Amy. "Dan," she said, her tone professional yet warm, "I've scheduled your divorce filing and custody petition for today. You'll want to be ready for some backlash." "Backlash?" I scoffed lightly, but couldn't hide the tremor in my voice. "She'll have to deal with it." Amy chuckled softly, a sound that reminded me why I trusted her so much. "Remember, stay calm. Don't let emotions take over." "I'll try." And then came Eric's call, his voice steady and clear as he finalized everything we needed for the audit report aimed at Nate's financial misdeeds. "I'm wrapping it up now," he said confidently. "This is gonna hit hard." "Good," I replied with determination bubbling within me. A few hours later, while I watched our daughter nap peacefully in her crib, a sight that both soothed and strengthened me, I heard Laura come home early from work. It wasn't long before she stormed into the living room like a hurricane unleashed, eyes blazing and fists clenched tightly by her sides. "What did you do?" she spat out before even looking around properly. "Hey," I said calmly, feeling an odd sense of control wash over me despite her fury raging like fire nearby. "Let's talk about this." She shoved a package onto the table between us. The words "legal documents" printed boldly across. It screamed louder than any accusation she could throw at me. "I got served!" she yelled, eyes wide with disbelief and fury rolling off her in waves, like someone caught completely off guard when they were certain they'd planned everything right. "Laura," I started but was cut off. "No, you listen to me." Her voice cracked slightly. Beneath all that rage lay confusion mingled with betrayal, the very same cocktail of emotions swirling inside me just days prior. I don't have to explain anything. It's not about explaining. My words were steady, but held an undercurrent of frustration bubbling up too, the kind you can't quite suppress when pushed into corners you never wanted to find yourself occupying anyway. "Then what is it?" She glared at me fiercely. That sharpness from earlier was returning, but this time accompanied by something softer, lurking behind those stormy eyes too. A hint of fear hidden beneath layers, built thick from pride and anger alike, combined together making their debut all too clear now. "It's about our daughter." Her breath hitched at my mention of our baby girl lying peacefully asleep upstairs, little oblivious to all chaos raging below just moments before. "You think this will hurt her?" she challenged, but somehow not quite meeting my gaze directly still either, as if suddenly unsure how best to position herself while still fighting for dominance here. "No," I answered carefully as calmly as possible, trying not only ease tension further rising around us, but reminding myself why we were even standing here together facing one another like adversaries instead of partners anymore. "We'll let the court handle it." The words fell flat, yet firm between us like an anchor tossed into turbulent seas, the sentiment far heavier than either could bear alone after everything twisted around already thus far. With determination driving forward beyond anything else holding me back right now, I stood taller than ever against looming uncertainty creeping closer, drawing near. We'd fought long enough against shadows lingering here without resolution promised any time soon either. As if struck mute by my response, she fell silent momentarily, instead glancing down toward floorboards below, unable entirely meet mine directly. Again, realizing how deep roots run between us forever intertwined, regardless whether positive or negative emotions exchanged during this fight anymore either way. Her breathing began slowing gradually, though visibly still seething beneath surface uncomfortably, forcing air through clenched teeth, only added tension escalating quickly, rising forth ever further still toward inevitable conflict. Both dreaded knowing must come eventually sooner rather than later. I won't let you take everything away from me. Her tone shifted slightly, reflecting a defensive nature creeping forth, signaling where precisely she'd chosen to go next again. Already attempting wrestle control away again desperately, even despite circumstances shifting firmly against her today and every day moving forward subsequently. You don't get it, I replied, quietly determined, yet strong, refusing succumb fully into temptation. Arise, hoping rekindle anything lost while resisting entire battle falling apart even quicker, instead altogether spiraling downward infinitely deeper every second passing along beneath pressure building unrelentingly. It's not just about you anymore. 2 weeks passed after the storm of that night, and things began to unfold like a deck of cards being turned over, one by one. I felt the tension lift ever so slightly. Yet I knew it was just the calm before a different kind of chaos. Laura's suspension came first. HR called her in, and when she returned home, her face was pale, as if all the color had been drained out. She paced our living room like a trapped animal. "Dan," she said, voice tight, "they're investigating my leave." I didn't say anything. What was there to say? I'd been holding on to my composure, but seeing her like this, a mix of defiance and desperation, was unnerving. "They think I falsified my paperwork," she continued, her voice trembling with indignation. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" I asked softly, letting that question hang in the air between us. She stopped pacing and shot me a look, one that told me she was still clinging to some hope that everything could be fixed with the right spin or persuasive argument. But reality had already knocked on her door and kicked it wide open. Days later, while sitting at my desk after putting our daughter down for a nap, I received a notification on my phone. It was from Amy, my divorce attorney. She wanted to discuss an update regarding Laura's situation at work. "Har found discrepancies in her maternity leave forms," Amy explained when I called her back. "She misrepresented how long she'd actually taken off to care for your daughter." I felt a weight settle in my stomach, a dark thrill coursing through me as if fate were balancing the scales for once. "So they're going to fire her?" "Most likely," Amy replied flatly, sounding almost clinical about it. A part of me hated how relieved I felt. It seemed cruel given everything we'd been through as a couple, what we had tried to build together for our daughter. But Laura had dug this hole herself. Within 2 weeks, that anticipated news arrived like clockwork. Laura was officially fired for cause falsifying documents during maternity leave. And suddenly everything began crumbling around her faster than either of us could have imagined. When she came home with that news etched across her features, a mixture of shock and rage, I watched her world shatter further still as each detail fell into place. The loss of income compounded everything else pressing down upon us. How would she ever explain this to anyone? Our friends? Family? Most importantly, our daughter? In those moments where despair mingled with anger over what had transpired between us, I wondered how deep this betrayal ran for both of us now, and whether we'd ever emerge from this chaos stronger or simply broken apart beyond repair instead. Meanwhile, Nate, ever the master manipulator, tried to play victim by calling our parents for help. He figured they'd swoop in like knights on shining steeds, ready to save him from his own mess. But they weren't having any of it. Not after I shared what I'd uncovered, the evidence of his financial misdeeds and his involvement with Laura, now hanging heavy like storm clouds overhead, readying themselves again finally break, apart pouring down fresh rain upon everyone involved too. I didn't have time for sympathy where he was concerned. It wasn't pity anymore, but rather disgust, directed squarely at him. Someone who thought he could leverage family ties without consequence, just because he wore a smile well enough sometimes, despite what lurked underneath surface. When Mom called me back expressing disbelief over everything laid bare before them, all lies exposed in glaring light, there was nothing left unsaid then. Nate had crossed lines that should have never been touched, and no amount of charm would erase any wrongs committed along this journey together. The conversations shifted fast as they made their choice clear. They cut Nate off entirely after realizing what he'd done to both Laura and me, and perhaps even worse, what he had done towards himself, too. The damage, inflicted irreversible, within all their hearts remaining fractured, moving forward now, too. In their eyes, he became unworthy. Merely another failed promise drifting aimlessly within an ocean filled with guilt but lacking hope rising back up again anytime soon. With each passing day, things spiraled further downhill for Nate, too. The final blow coming when his landlord received notice about pending asset seizure regarding unpaid rent, associated with both apartments occupied recently alongside living arrangements. Elsewhere, including those questionable loans borrowed from family funds, he didn't even bother reaching out directly anymore, since awareness dawned painfully, slowly revealing truths unfolding left unchecked already. It didn't matter how much manipulation attempted cast doubt upon blame, shifting onto others instead, either none of it mattered anymore. At least not once every thread connected came unraveling back toward him, ultimately causing utter collapse. Late one night, while trying desperately rest beneath dim lights, glowing softly illuminating darkness closing around me, I received an unexpected text from Nate. "You've ruined my life." I stared at those words, frozen momentarily, wondering how best respond before finally deciding against it altogether, instead choosing silence deeper, still enveloping me completely. That void echoed louder than anything spoken could have, conveyed back towards him anyway. Every ounce contained within response felt better, left unaddressed for now instead. It wasn't worth indulging his theatrics again, nor investing energy wasted, hoping change occurred magically somehow either. Not when so much lay ahead, waiting patiently, until due time arrived, inevitably turning forward toward bright horizons, awaiting ahead once darkness lifted gradually away from all consumed thus far remaining. Sitting there quietly alone, contemplating all events transpiring just beyond reach, felt surreal. The juxtaposition stark against newfound freedom, granted through resolute decisions made, nothing left holding back any longer. Suffocating bonds intertwined until severed cleanly away, leaving space behind meant filled anew, entirely renewed opportunities awaiting. Yet, beneath it all, a creeping uncertainty lingered, faintly echoing throughout existence, reminding how fragile life remains, regardless, even amidst triumphs blossoming beautifully beside failures, falling hard, crashing ground below. Revealing dark truths woven intricately into lives, lived intertwining endlessly throughout journeys, undertaken collectively, sharing countless moments forgotten, somehow fading silently into oblivion, thereafter never returning quite same way. Once lost forevermore, replaced unexpectedly, while still hoping best remained possible ahead, always reaching outward, dreaming brightly, unshackled towards future awaiting discovery. The day finally came to file for full custody. I walked into Amy's office, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. It felt surreal, like I was stepping onto a stage with everything on the line, ready to present the evidence I had gathered over the past months. Each piece of data felt heavy in my pocket. The screenshots of Laura's texts, the bank statements, and of course, the haunting nanny cam footage that captured her whispering Nate's name while cradling our daughter. "Ready?" Amy asked, her sharp eyes locking onto mine. She was always calm, poised even in chaos. I nodded, swallowing hard. With a swift movement, she began pulling together the documentation. "We're going to build a compelling case," she said matter-of-factly as she sorted through the papers on her desk. "This isn't just about proving Laura's infidelity. It's about demonstrating what kind of environment is best for your daughter." I took a breath, reminding myself why I was here. This wasn't just about revenge or settling scores. It was about securing a future for my little girl. As we filed the paperwork at the courthouse later that week, I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, either about to take flight or plunge into darkness. We entered the courtroom with determination fueling each step. Amy exuded confidence as she prepared her arguments, while I silently replayed every sleepless night spent gathering evidence. When Laura arrived, dressed in another one of her meticulously chosen outfits, I noticed how different we both looked now. I was weathered, but resolute. She seemed like someone desperately clinging to an image, while everything else crumbled beneath her feet. The tension crackled between us like static electricity. It was hard not to let it overwhelm me. The judge took his seat and motioned for silence. The hearing commenced with Amy presenting our case first, layering facts upon facts in an unassailable manner that made Laura's attorney shift nervously in his chair. We have financial records indicating that Laura co-signed on loans without Daniel's knowledge and funneled money towards questionable expenses, Amy said coolly, holding up documents for all to see. These transactions coincide with visits to Nate during their affair. My heart raced as whispers rippled through the courtroom. Curiosity hung thick in the air. And we have this, she continued, pressing play on her laptop connected to a projector displaying the nanny cam footage. Every eye turned toward the screen as my world fell silent once more. My stomach twisted, watching Laura speaking Nate's name so tenderly while holding our baby. A cold sweat trickled down my back despite being surrounded by witnesses listening intently as if hearing it all unfold firsthand again. I stole a glance at Laura then. Her face paled dramatically under harsh fluorescent lights, the mask cracking ever so slightly, revealing real panic underneath. A woman who thought she could escape accountability until now. I'll prove that Daniel has been nothing but devoted. Amy pressed forward, capitalizing on momentum gained from revealing such damning evidence. He has cared for their child alone during these past months, while Laura remained preoccupied elsewhere. Laura's attorney stood up weakly, trying half-heartedly rebutting before ultimately realizing there wasn't much ground left underneath him anymore either. Their arguments collapsing against every truth, laid bare, thoroughly exposed. Over hours, dedicated solely towards showcasing how misplaced priorities unfolded within each moment too often forgotten before. At last came time for closing statements. The judge leaned forward, awaiting any last words from both sides, noticing quickly how fragile emotions remained, stirred deeply amongst us, still simmering behind stoic expressions worn until now. But none mattered more than mine meant having fought back against wrongs done specifically targeting those who should have protected us instead. Your Honor, I began steadying myself as eyes turned expectantly towards me, finally feeling strength flow back through veins, remembering what mattered most. My sole focus is on providing our daughter with stability and love. Everything else pales compared to her needs moving forward. The judge nodded thoughtfully as he prepared to deliberate. Laura glanced away, unable maintaining eye contact fully anymore, while fidgeting nervously now too. I wondered whether any part inside still longed for reconciliation lost. Forever gone now. Beyond reach, ultimately shattered upon realization. Tearing down walls, protecting trust once built between us, effortlessly broken apart easily, leaving nothing remaining untouched. After what felt like an eternity filled with waiting, punctuated only by heartbeats drumming loudly in ears, we finally received news. I award sole custody of your daughter to Daniel Mercer. A wave crashed over me. The verdict echoed through my mind, breaking open, feelings locked tight. Relief surged within. Overpowering joy, bubbling up, ready, burst forth, spilling everywhere. As we exited that sterile courtroom into bustling hallway filled swirling bodies rushing around completely oblivious. They didn't know they'd just witnessed something significant unravel here today. But then, just beyond those doors, my breath caught sight of Laura, slumped against cold wall, struggling against tears, threatening overflow past tightly controlled facade, breaking suddenly unable hide anymore, partly satisfied. Watching someone once deemed untouchable, facing reality reflected starkly here right outside, glaring brightly beneath unforgiving sunlight, shining brightly overhead, illuminating dark truths revealed instead overshadowing pretenses before. Moving forward effortlessly, carrying baby carrier securely strapped across shoulder, feeling pride swell larger, yet knowing deeper satisfaction awaited just around corner too. Days later arrived promptly, delivering unexpected good news following closely after judgment made firmly laying ground firm anew, promising brighter horizons ahead, illuminating paths taken when least expected most strongly influenced, forward once firmly embraced within. Then, It hit. A formal letter stamped with IRS insignia arriving one quiet afternoon, opening door wide toward investigations. Previously anticipated, looming overhead, lingering always below surface, until now shining light finally upon the bureau. Secrets hidden tightly, kept away previously. Concealing realities left unexplored, fully prompting wider inquiries awaiting answers. Needed, long overdue, somehow rising, fast-growing, larger, consuming everything surrounding current circumstances. Resulting devastating revelations. Expected, flowing freely outward, bursting bubbles surrounding untouched lives. Previously unaware, left stranded, floating aimlessly until brought together again, rediscovering newfound purpose, hidden truths, revealing darkness, illuminating way boldly onward, changing lives forevermore. Leading bravely onward, forging ahead, rebuilding foundations, scattered throughout life anew, invigorating spirit, renewed, soaring high, free. Transforming struggles. Once known, transformed remarkably toward uncharted territories. Unexplored, where possibilities lie endless, just beyond horizons, remaining endless. I started small. That's what they tell you after any loss. Take it one day at a time, one box at a time, one memory at a time. The first things to go were the wedding photos. I didn't make a dramatic show of it, no angry, glass-smashing or flame-filled ceremonies. Just methodically worked my way through the house one evening after putting the baby down, collecting frames and albums. Each one went into a plain cardboard box labeled storage, not trash or burn. I wasn't giving Laura the satisfaction of knowing they'd been destroyed. Besides, maybe someday my daughter would want to see them, would want to understand. You know that hollow feeling you get in your stomach when you're taking down Christmas decorations? Like you're erasing joy from the walls? This was worse. Every empty nail hole felt like a fresh wound. But I kept going, room by room, until our home stopped being a shrine to a failed marriage. The joint accounts were next. I'd already frozen most of them during the legal proceedings, but now it was time for the final sweep. I sat at my desk one Saturday morning, coffee growing cold beside me, and systematically closed or transferred everything. Checking, savings, credit cards, investment accounts. 17 years of shared finances undone in under an hour. My daughter dozed in her swing nearby, peaceful and oblivious to the digital dismantling of her parents' life together. "Look at that, sweetheart," I whispered to her sleeping form. "Daddy's getting pretty good at starting over." The car was trickier. Laura's sleek SUV sat in our driveway like an expensive paperweight. She couldn't afford the payments anymore, and the title was in both our names. I could have let it get repossessed, let her credit take another hit, but I'm not built for petty revenge. I listed it privately, handled the calls and test drives while she stayed with her sister, and got a fair price. The money went straight into a college fund for our daughter. Seemed fitting somehow, turning that symbol of our broken marriage into something hopeful for the future. But the watch, that was different. That was personal. My father's gold watch had been in our family for 3 generations. He'd given it to Nate years ago, passing over me because your brother needs something to aspire to. Classic dad, always trying to motivate Nate through gestures. I'd pretended it didn't hurt, but it did. Watching Nate parade around with that piece of family history on his wrist while he systematically betrayed everything it represented, that stuck in my throat like a fishbone. When our parents finally saw the truth about Nate, saw the evidence of his betrayal laid out in black and white, they were devastated. Mom cried for days. Dad just got quiet. That dangerous kind of quiet that means someone's world is imploding. They cut him off completely. No money, no support, no family gatherings. And Dad personally drove over to Nate's apartment to take back the watch. I was feeding my daughter her morning banana when Dad showed up at my door, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Without a word, he placed the watch on my kitchen counter. The gold caught the morning light, still gleaming despite everything. "It should have been yours from the start," he said gruffly. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see that." He left before I could respond, but that was fine. We'd never been good at emotional moments anyway. Now, watching my daughter smash banana between her tiny fingers, I picked up the watch. It felt heavier than I remembered, solid and real in my palm. The leather band was worn smooth from years of wear, but the face was still perfect, each tick marking another second of our family's history. I slipped it onto my wrist, adjusting the band to fit. My daughter looked up at me and giggled, banana smeared across her chin. She reached out with sticky fingers toward the shining gold, and I let her touch it gently. "This is part of your history too, little one," I told her, wiping her face clean. "And we're going to write a better story with it." The watch felt right there on my wrist, like it had been waiting for me all along. Each tick seemed to whisper, "Move forward, move forward, move forward." I needed fresh air. The house, even with all traces of Laura stripped away, still felt heavy some mornings. So I bundled up my daughter. She was getting so big now, hardly that fragile NICU baby anymore, and drove us to Riverside Park. You know those perfect fall mornings, when the air's crisp enough to wake you up but the sun's warm enough to make you linger? That's what we got. The kind of morning that makes you believe in second chances. I settled us on my favorite bench, the one under the old maple tree. My daughter bounced on my knee, completely fascinated by a squirrel darting between fallen leaves. The watch on my wrist caught the morning light, each glint like a quiet reminder. We made it. "Look at that bird, sweetheart," I said, pointing to a cardinal hopping nearby. She squealed and reached out with both hands, nearly tumbling off my lap. I caught her, breathing in that baby shampoo smell that always made my chest tight with love. Remember when everything was that new, that amazing? A young couple pushed a stroller past us, both parents leaning in to check on their baby. Used to be, seeing that would have stung. Reminded me of what Laura took from us, but now, I just nodded hello, comfortable in my own skin. In my own story. My phone stayed quiet in my pocket. No more frantic texts from Laura about visitation schedules. No more carefully worded emails from Amy about court dates. Even Nate had finally gotten the message and stopped trying to reach me through mutual friends. The silence felt earned, like crossing a finish line I hadn't known I was running toward. A cool breeze rustled through, sending leaves spiraling down around us. My daughter grabbed at them, laughing that pure baby laugh that makes strangers smile. An older woman on a morning walk paused to wave at her, then caught my eye. "She's absolutely precious," she said. "Thank you," I replied, and for the first time in months, those words came easy. No awkward pause where I used to wonder if I should mention her mother. No internal flinch at solo parenting questions. Just simple pride in my daughter, in our little team of two. The morning crowd started filtering in. Joggers, dog walkers, other parents with their kids. I watched them all with new eyes. Not through the lens of what I'd lost, but what I'd reclaimed. My dignity, my peace, my belief that doing things right still matters, even when others do you wrong. My daughter started fussing, getting hungry. I knew her cues now, so I pulled out her bottle. As she drank, her tiny hand wrapped around my finger, and I remembered those NICU nights. How scared I'd been, how alone I'd felt. But look at us now. She was thriving, growing stronger every day, and so was I. The sun climbed higher, warming the bench. Other families came and went, each living out their own stories. Some happy, some probably complicated. Aren't they all? But I didn't need to know their tales anymore. Mine had found its quiet ending. Or maybe not an ending at all. Maybe just a better beginning. My daughter finished her bottle and yawned. Those big baby yawns that take over their whole face. I shifted her to my shoulder, patting her back gently. She settled in, one hand curled against my neck. The trust in that simple gesture hit me hard. This was what mattered. Not the betrayal, not the revenge, not even the justice. Just this, being worthy of that trust. A few maple leaves drifted down, landing on the stroller's handle. Red and gold, like nature's own victory medals. I didn't brush them away. Let them stay, marking this moment. This quiet victory of simply sitting in the sun with my daughter, at peace with where we'd landed. The watch ticked steadily on my wrist, counting out our new rhythm. Each second pure and clean, unburdened by old hurts. I kissed my daughter's head, breathing in that perfect baby smell again. We had nothing left to prove, no more battles to fight. Just this bench, this morning, this peace. I settled onto the worn wooden bench, easing the stroller back and forth as my daughter slept. You know that perfect kind of autumn morning? The one where the air feels clean enough to wash away even the darkest memories? That's what I had that day. Just me, my little girl, and the gentle lap of lake water against the shore. My father's gold watch caught the sunlight, sending little flashes across my daughter's peaceful face. 17 years ago, Dad had given it to Nate instead of me, said my younger brother. Needed the confidence boost. Funny how things come full circle. Now it was back where it belonged, keeping time on my wrist while Nate's time ran out. I pulled out my phone, more out of habit than need these days. The local business journal's headline made me pause. Regional Tech Investor Files, Chapter 7 following federal investigation. There was Nate's face, trying to dodge reporters outside the courthouse. The article didn't mention the crypto scheme or Laura's involvement. Those details were still grinding through the legal system. But everyone in our circles knew. The whispers had done their work. A jogger passed by, nodding hello. I remembered when every stranger's face made me tense, wondering if they knew, if they were judging. Now? I just nodded back, easy as breathing. The shame wasn't mine to carry anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Amy, my attorney. Elle's sister called, wants to negotiate visitation. I didn't reply. Laura had moved in with her sister 3 weeks ago, after her landlord wouldn't renew her lease. No references, no income, no options. The same sister who'd once told me at our wedding, "You better take care of her or else." Well, I'd kept my word. I'd taken care of everything. A family of ducks waddled past our bench, mama in front, babies wobbling behind. My daughter stirred, making those tiny sleep sounds that still amazed me every time. Remember when I said I documented everything? Here's what I never wrote down. How it felt watching Laura hold our baby while whispering another man's name. How my hands shook every night as I built the case that would destroy them both. How many times I nearly broke and confronted them with raw anger instead of calculated silence. But I didn't break. I didn't scream. I didn't even raise my voice. Just kept my head down, gathered evidence, and let the system do what systems do best. Crush those who try to cheat it. Another text came through, this one from Eric, my auditor friend. IRS expanding investigation. N's old clients being contacted. I could picture Nate's face when he realized his whole network was about to learn exactly how he'd played with their money. No more charming his way out of trouble. No more borrowed time. The lake breeze picked up, carrying playground laughter from around the bend. My daughter's eyes fluttered open, those clear, innocent eyes that had kept me focused through the worst of it. I lifted her out of the stroller, breathing in that perfect baby smell as she snuggled against my chest. "You want to know something, sweetheart?" I whispered, watching a leaf spiral down to the water. "Your uncle and your mama thought silence meant weakness." They saw my quiet as permission. I adjusted her little hat, smiling as she grabbed at my watch with curious fingers. But here's what they never understood. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear most. The morning sun warmed my face as I stood, daughter secure in my arms. Around us, the park lived its simple life. Joggers nodding hello, dogs chasing balls, kids climbing trees. No anger. No schemes. No betrayal hiding behind family smiles. Just peace, earned through patience and precision. I looked down at my little girl, now fully awake and studying the world with those huge, trusting eyes. "Remember this," I whispered, though she was far too young to understand. "Betrayal burns, but silence rebuilds." She grabbed my nose in response, giggling at her own cleverness. And you know what? That sound, that pure, innocent laugh, was worth more than any revenge could ever be. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.